Well, it's time to begin our lesson tonight, and we are going to study about Joshua, kind of on the tail ends of Moses, but we're finishing up and going right into Joshua tonight. Wait for Miss Puckett to sit down. It's my fault. Okay. Yeah. Brother Tate, would you start us off with a word of prayer, please, sir?
Our Father in heaven, thank you for this opportunity to come here tonight, study a portion of your word. Thank you for the message you've given us. Thank you for the freedom we enjoy each day, especially the freedom to come here each week and just do a portion of our word and study to know how we ought to be always pleasing to you and how to live our life the way is pleasing to you through your word. Pray that you'll be with those that are sick and not able to be here tonight. You'll watch over them and help them return once again and get well. Pray that you'll be with us as we go through this service tonight. Help us to study these things and always try to do your will. Thank you for especially sending Jesus to this earth to live and die for our sins. It's through his name we pray. All these blessings. Amen.
Yeah. Well, good thing tonight, I don't have a car story to tell y'all about. You know, usually I tell y'all to have a lot of grace on people, and then I've come to realize that I'm telling y'all a story about how I get into confrontations every week, and so maybe it was me, you know. No, I'm kidding, but I did not have one this week. That's good. You know, people are crazy out there driving around, and it's getting too busy on the road, but anyway, studying through Joshua, my assistant up there, y'all don't know Ryan Lacey, he's my assistant. And when I'm studying these over a couple of days, they're all saying, Ryan, come in here, look at this right here. And, you know, it's just really funny because I was going back into when Moses and them were taking them through the wilderness and everything. And of course, the Israelites are always complaining about everything and griping. And they said that they were tired of the bread that they were getting every day, which that was given to them. And they wanted meat. And so, y'all know the story, right? He said, and so he had them tell the people, okay, I'm going to give you meat, not just one day, not just two, not just 5, but 30 days until it's running out of your nose is what it said. And you just test meat. And then because you said, I wish I was still in Egypt, I will punish you for that, you know. And each time when I'm telling Ryan these little stories, he says, why? And he says the obvious, you know, why do they do those things like that when they've already seen the miracles, they've seen the plagues, they've seen the fire, they've seen the parting of the Red Sea, and they still revert and do these things. And do y'all know the answer? Human nature, that's what I told him. Human nature. But anyway, this is, of course, every one of these lessons starts off by saying the main point of this lesson is to show is that God is delivering on the promises that it was delivered a long time ago, in God's own time, in every little aspect along the way. Man's faults, where we try to help God or do something different, somehow it ends up in God's plan. He knew we were going to do those things, you know. And that's the amazing thing about this story as we go through all this. But tonight, so I'm going to start off a little bit right here, and we're going to kind of back up into Exodus just a little bit, see the character of Joshua as our person tonight. And Ronnie, if you'll start off with Exodus chapter 17 and read verses 8 through 16.
17 verse 8. And Amalek came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, choose men for us to go out and fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Joshua did as Moses told him and fought against Amalek. Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. So it came about when Moses held his hand up lowered his hands, one on one side, one on the other. Thus his hand was steady until the sun set. So Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And the Lord said to Moses, write this in a book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar and named it, The Lord is my banner. And he said, the Lord has sworn, the Lord will have war against Amalek from generation to generation.
Okay. All right, so this is our first few verses, if you heard them, over Charlie's phone. Ronnie didn't even hear the disruption, did you? And I didn't either, and then I saw her get up. But so that's one good thing about not being able to hear very good. What is one of the character traits that you learn about Joshua right here in this first verse that we read? Tell me a little bit about Joshua from this verse right here. All right, friend of Moses. Don't. Tracy would say what?
The faith that he has.
The faith that he had.
Because,
Okay.
I mean, basically, Moses tells him the battle plan is, I'm going to go stand on top of the hill with a rod in my hand,
Yeah.
and you go win the fight.
Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. What else? Courage. Okay. You think he's had any training in fighting? Probably has. Probably has. Obviously he has. And what else? Ronnie?
Well, these Amalekites were
Vicious people.
very warring type.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure a lot of the Israelites would have thought they had a critical need.
Okay. Okay.
I kind of doubt that Joshua had any training in fighting. He'd been raised as a slave,
Mm-hmm.
and then when God led the children of Israel out of Egypt,
Right.
he didn't go the direct route of what the
Right.
Philistines went over, because he didn't want them to be exposed to fighting
Yeah.
at that point, because they weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably the official first fighting they've ever been involved.
Well, but I think he's probably had plenty of training along the way somewhere. Leadership, could be fighting, but he's obviously a leader all the way from bringing them out of Egypt as they go through there. I also think, because my next point was going to be that Moses thought enough of him to give him that charge there. So obviously he's a friend of Moses. He often kind of in these scriptures here refers to him as an assistant to Moses. He would go and assist him when he would go up there. I think his life experiences up until this point right here is what is probably the most important part that gives him this faith and this courage that he's talking about here. What all has he witnessed so far in his short little life? He's probably 40 or something like that. What all has he witnessed so far? 10 plagues. That's kind of a good one. God coming through, delivering the people as promised. He was in the background, so he knew what all was going on. You think he also saw the way Moses was, his faith, his confidence? Probably there was a time or two where Joshua might have said, "Are you sure we can do that?" You know, and he would see the confidence of Moses. So he had a pretty good person to train under. Okay, Donnie, would you read Exodus chapter 24, 9 through 13?
24, verse 9. Then Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, 70 of the elders of Israel, went up, and they saw the God of Israel. There was under his feet, as it were, a pavement of sapphire stone, like the very heaven was clear. And he did not lay his hands on the chief men of the people of Israel. They beheld God and ate and drank. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there, that I may give you the tablets of stone with the law and the commandment which I have written for their instruction." But Moses rose with his assistant Joshua, and Moses went up into the mountain of God.
Okay, so he's going up there to receive the law, the commandments from God, and the person he chooses to go with them is Joshua. And so this is all the character building that is going to take him to lead them finally into the land of Canaan at the end. So these are the things that he's learning along the way there. Going back, I skipped over on this last, the one that Ronnie read. Did y'all think it was interesting there on Moses for him to have to hold his hands up? And then whenever it would come down, they would start losing. Whenever it'd come back up again, and they'd prop rocks under his arms to keep his arms up over there.
You back up to verse 5.
Uh-huh.
See if the
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a matter of.
Obedience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Following the
Yes. Okay. Okay, someone else, let's turn to chapter 32. We're going to read 15 through 20. 32, 15 through 20. Somebody wants to jump out there and Sam?
And Moses turned and went down from the mountain, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both sides, on the one side and on the other they were written. Now the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. But he said, it is not the noise of the shout of victory, nor the noise of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing I hear. And so it was, as soon as he came near the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing. So Moses' anger became hot, and he cast the tablets out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain. Then he took the calf which they had made, burned it in the fire, ground it to powder, and he scattered it on the water and made the children of Israel drink it.
Okay, and this is the little part here too. Of course, the story here in this is about Joshua. He is one of the leaders with Moses coming down, and he's seeing how the people are reacting, their obedience to God and how quickly they turn. He was up there 40 days and 40 nights, and it didn't take them long before they started gathering the jewelry and making something else for them to worship. I mean, think about all the, and that's what Ryan, and y'all don't know Ryan, so I'm sure, but Ryan would say, well, they had already seen all those things up in there, and it really, I said, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't that they would fall away so quick. But this next little part in here, and it wasn't on mine, but we were reading down through here. In verse 25, now when Moses saw that the people were out of control, for Aaron had let them get out of control, then Moses stood at the gate of the camp and said, whoever is for the Lord, come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered together round him. And he said to them, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, every man of you put a sword on his thigh and go back and forth from gate to gate in the camp and kill every man his brother and every man his friend and every man his neighbor. So what was his judgment for those people that chose not to come with Moses? Death. You know, and for people that don't read the Bible very much, you know, it kind of sets you back a little bit right there. And that's what Ryan was saying, boy, that's pretty cruel. And I said, well, a lot of times it was immediate judgment back then. Aren't we lucky we don't have that kind of judgment on us? But anyway, this is the character building that's part of, just think if you were learning under someone, you would start to develop I don't want to cross God at any point in my life. And this is part of he is courageous and he's strong. And these are probably enough to get us started into this, except for I want to jump forward to the very end. And it's a song that we sing on there, but someone read Joshua 24:15. This is going to be where the rest of my lesson is going towards, but I'm going to hit the end and then come back. Y'all ever been told to do that? You read the first and the last and then come back? No? Yeah? Okay. Who wants to read that? Joshua 24:15. Jeffrey.
And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods of your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Okay. All right. We sing a little song kind of like that, don't we? And so, all right, now, some of y'all may know the background of this lesson that I got out of. So, what's Joshua's, his family, tell me about his family so far. Do they live in the house up on the hill? Somebody said earlier that he came, Rebecca, you said he was a slave, right? Okay. What about his daddy? For 400 years, his family had been in slavery. That's all they had known. This is the man that's supposed to lead us out. And when you think about everything that he came as a slave, he was born a slave in Egypt, lived throughout slavery, but then he witnessed the miracles, and then he's going to wander through the wilderness for 40 years at that time. And then when he's about 80 is when he's going to receive his commissions here. So we're going to now turn over to, let's go over to one more here in the Old Testament. Let's catch this one here. No, we've already got that. So back in the end of Exodus, there's when they built the Ark of the Covenant, and that's when God had him build the things that he would be worshiped in. And then everybody knows what the Ark of the Covenant is. That's not our study tonight, but it's going to be important as we go through here. So let's turn over to Joshua, and we're going to start with first few verses here. And I'll read this first part. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, you and all the people, to the land which I have given you, the children of Israel. Every place that your soul, that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, as I have said to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you, nor forsake you, being strong and of good courage. For this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to you and their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded to you. Do not turn from the right hand or from the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. So we'll start right there. So tell me what you think about God. He's turning over the reins. Moses has died. He's told him that you're going to be the one that's going to take them into the Jordan. In this lesson here, I want to compare it to the way we should feel with God in our lives today. How would you feel if this was done to you as a leader of the world, of your little group? To have God on your side, to say the things that he says to you. He says that wherever you go, it will be yours and no one will get in front of you. I am on your side. And I mean, it's just got to be an unbelievable point in your life when someone is telling you everything's going to be okay. What about our lives? Is everything okay with us? I'm sorry?
If we're right with God in Christ.
Absolutely.
We
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. We've definitely learned what happens when you're not on God's side, right? Okay. Yeah, I think that's a real good lesson. It doesn't always mean that we're going to get Wendy. It doesn't always mean we're going to get the house that we want, as she's been trying to bid. Oh, no, that was Jeffrey and them sitting there trying to get houses. And we're not talking about land. We're not talking about you're going to be able to go and get any land you want in there. But I think the comfort that we have and the confidence that we have, whatever is happening outside of us, having the confidence that Joshua has right in here is what we need to get out of this. Rhonda?
You know, it's like a roadmap for Joshua for success. And he's telling him, you know, you're going to be successful, everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
But the one caveat there, which is important for us to understand,
Mhm.
is starting in verse 7 on, there he says to them, be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go.
Okay.
So he ties it back to everything's going to be great, everything's going to be good.
Mhm.
You, to be successful, just keep the law that you've been given. Don't turn to the right or the left.
Yeah.
Just follow it, and everything's going to be good.
Okay. He didn't say everything was going to be easy, though. In fact, it's going to be really hard. That's what he's getting them prepared for. It's going to be really hard. The people they're about to fight should win if you didn't have God behind their back. They should win, all the way up into the last one, where there's, like, for every 10,000 Canaanites, there's like one person or something. I mean, it's just the odds are against. These are the things that we have to do, is to understand. What do we have to make sure that we don't do in our lives is go to the right or to the left, and what else? Go ahead.
On verse 8,
Mhm.
it's very important. It says to meditate on it
Mm-hmm.
day and night.
Okay.
It means we are to meditate on the law of God.
Okay.
And that's probably one of the most important things, because once you meditate on it, and that's in your mind 24/7.
Okay.
You
And that
should
means on Sunday morning only,
read-
Jeffrey's going to give us everything we need.
Yeah, that's right, Sunday morning, Sunday night.
Yeah, yeah. What does that mean, Corbin?
That means you have to, number one, to meditate on the law,
Mhm.
you have to know the law.
All right.
And the only way you're gonna know the law is to study, to show yourself approved unto God.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's the most important. He has to know that law.
Yeah.
We have to know the law.
Exactly. And Corbin, so you've got a child on the way, right? Whose responsibility is it to teach your child everything they need to know? You too. Okay? We're all supposed to help, and you're supposed to help Audrey's kids and everybody. It's your job, and especially as the man of the house, they're going to look up to you whenever you're going to be training them. When do you got to cram all this stuff in where it's coming out their nose? What time? When they get to 21? You got a window of time from when Noah's back there at about 3 or 4 years old to about 15, and then they get too big for their britches at that point. You better have taught them by that time. But seriously, you've got a window of time that, first of all, we got to learn what to tell them, and so you got to learn. And the law she's talking about was their law at that time, but we have a new law that we're under at that point. But we have to know what's pleasing to God at that point. I didn't mean to pull you out on there, but okay, so the next part right in here is the order to cross Jordan. In about verse 10 there. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the camp and tell the people that within 3 days we're going to cross over the Jordan, we're going to possess the land, and the Lord your God will be given to possess it. So what do you think these people are? Now, how many people are in this nation at this point? Been watering through about 10,000? 1 million people, okay? How are they going to get across that river? It doesn't even say anything. They're not telling people that God's going to part the water at this point. They're just told to get ready, get prepared. 3 days, they're fixing to do something. Something great's going to happen. Verse 12, 13. Remember the word which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, saying, the Lord your God is giving you rest and is giving you this land. Your wives, your little ones, your livestock will remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side of the Jordan, but you shall pass over before your brethren armed, all your mighty men in valor, until the Lord has given you the brethren rest, and he gave them to them as a possession of the land. I'm kind of going through there. But so at that point then, so they answered Joshua and said, all that you command us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. And only the Lord your God be with you, as they were with Moses. And they all revered him in awe, just like they revered Moses in awe, as it says in the scriptures there. And so then the next thing, they've got some spies, and Mr. Tyler asked me about the spies before, and these are different spies right here. So these are a couple spies that are going in, and they're going into Jericho, and they're going to see what everything's like. That's what they used to like to do, send spies in. So as they send the spies in, the king of Jericho hears that the spies are there. And whose house are they in? Rahab. Who is Rahab? She's not just a normal person, huh? Okay, harlot. All right. You know, and there's a lot of people from different backgrounds that are used to carry out God's will. It's just not all the Levitical priests. And in fact, they're the ones that seem to, not them, but I mean the people of the hierarchy seem to be the ones that disappoint God in the long run. But I just think it's really neat whenever people of this caliber are used to carry out God's will. So one of the things that I like in these verses right in here, and we're not reading them right now, but so as she comes in, she's telling them that the people of Jericho know that y'all are coming. And what do you think they think, those people of Jericho think? They're terrified. They're terrified. Why? Because what have they been doing so far? Okay? God is on your side. They already know what they've done to people as they've come through. Most of the time, whenever they're coming through and possessing this land, so if I wanted to come over to Kilgore and I like your farm out there, was that the why God was going and possessing these and killing everybody there as we came over to Kilgore? What were most of these nations? Were they good people or bad people? They were bad people, okay? In fact, we also know that, you know, because if you're reading through it and you haven't read through it several times, I mean, it kind of gives you pause whenever they kill everybody. And they're fixing to kill everybody in this town right here. But these are people that are so bad, and even in some of the other countries there, God would respond and say, not yet, I'm not going to kill them, it's not yet time. And they hadn't gotten bad enough in his sight for them to have a judgment on them. And so Rahab, they come to Rahab and say, do you have the spies? And she says, they were here, but they're going back. If you hurry, you can catch them. And she was hiding them upstairs on the roof up top. And so then she brings them down after they leave and tells them to hurry back and report what you have. But when you come, she's assuming they're going to come and kill everybody. Please save my family. and she names brothers and sisters and whatever. Okay, you got a deal. You saved us, so we'll save you. If any one of us kills you, it's on us, and vice versa. And so she lets them go, and they go back. And so that's Rahab hides the spies, and they get a chance to go back. And then on chapter 3 is when Israel actually crosses the Jordan River. And so Joshua rose up early in the morning. He set out for the grove on the Jordan, he and the children of Israel. And in verse 2, so after 3 days that the officers went throughout the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, when the ark comes through, y'all follow in behind and follow the ark. And so in verse 5, Joshua goes to them, he tells the people to sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. Then Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, take up your ark, your covenant, cross over before the people. They took the ark before the people, and as they stepped into the water, what happened to the river? Parted, or it stopped upstream is what it did. It stopped upstream, and it heaped up a wall up there. And they were able to walk down in on dry ground. What does this sound like? Red Sea, okay? There's a lot of really good similarities between the Red Seas. So it's God parting the waters. It's the people crossing through on dry ground. You know, in the first one there, the enemies are behind them, chasing them into the sea. And on this one, where's the enemy? In front of them, okay? They're going through, they're in front of them. So it's not a coincidence. All these things are very symbolic, and they're coming through. So then as they come through, Joshua tells the men to pick up 12 stones that are in the river and bring them up. And as they did a lot of times, they built an altar there so that years later, when their kids came across it and said, what are those stones here for? They would explain this story. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that had to take a good while for all of them to cross.
Yeah, a little bit. For 1 million people.
We're talking about a lot of people. We're not saying if you just happen like crossed over like you would have.
Yeah.
And then bam, you know.
Yeah.
It took a good while. I'm not telling how long it took.
Right.
For all of the nation to go.
And they're not just walking. You think they have a little bit of junk with them? I mean,
And the cattle and whatever else
they have the tents and everything. Yeah. Kids. Yeah, kids. At least it's dry ground, or that could be a mess. But seriously, I mean, I don't think this river, from the pictures I look, it's not like it's a real big river, but even taking 1 million people across the Sabine River would be tough, you know. I know.
When people do that, they slow down and
Yeah. Okay. And it has been 40 years since the last little parting of the Red Sea. So some of these people hadn't seen that part, you know. They had heard stories of it. Huh? Yeah, most of them had not seen the parting. Yes, Danny.
I think it was a lot bigger back in the day because they said it would flood the plains, you know.
Yes.
This time of the year.
Yes. This time of the year was the rainy season, and it would have been flooded at that time of the year. Yeah, and I think we talked about it before, how someone in today's world they always try to say how there would have been a dry spell or something, so it opened up, and to take the miracle away from it. That's what they did on the Red Sea. But this happened to be around that time, when it's usually flooded. Just like right now, even if it wasn't raining very much, there's going to be water in the Sabine River, you know. It's not going to be dry. Okay, so they set up memorial stones. You know, that's the one thing that Donnie's son-in-law, when he was preaching to us, and the more he pointed that out, that all these things a lot of things happen in the same area there. And these crossings, they had all of these memorials there. And so these people would travel these roads, and it was as a reminder to tell kids in the future, their grandkids. And so that's why they built this here, because we always have a tendency. So we talked about, are you usually more faithful whenever things are hard or when things are really good? Food for thought, huh? Hard? Why?
Looking for an answer.
Okay.
If you're a Christian, it's always in God, but it should be all the time.
Okay. All right.
Stop relying on yourself.
Yeah. I think back to 9/11, which was traumatic for me. I know of y'all, a lot of y'all, and maybe not. When they bombed Japan, over in Hawaii, when Japan bombed us, that was, really tough time. Nobody's, huh? Yeah, no, I know nobody here is that old, but 9/11 was a time, and what did people do? They went back to church, and then what we have a tendency to do is, so they've been wandering for 40 years, they hadn't had nothing, and now they're going to come over, and if they don't have these reminders, if they're not taught daily the scriptures, what do? They just slide back into what they normally are not supposed to do. And so that's all the reason why, and I really liked his sermon there. You can tell it impressed me, but as you're going through, you see these different things that cross, and they have main highways that they used to travel through these mountains and stuff, and so they would have these reminders that they would talk to people about. But seriously, it's as far as reading the scriptures daily, it has to be in between Wednesday night and Sunday night that you're doing it on your own, or it's not enough, I don't think, if you don't study on your own. And I know I hadn't done a good enough job of telling y'all what the next one is going to be about. And the next time I teach it, I say this every time, but I'm wanting to get lessons for y'all so you can read ahead. But this one kind of had the lessons that you could get prepared for, but we should get prepared for class and stuff. But okay, so then the second part right here in chapter 5, the second generation is going to be circumcised. This one kind of got me right in here. So why did God, the Lord God, had them circumcise all the men? Why?
Because they had not been circumcised while they were wondering.
Okay, yeah. They'd been out there 40 years. Most of these fighting men of fighting age were not circumcised. So he had them to all be circumcised with flint rocks. And I brought Ryan in. Ryan, come here, listen to this. And then they waited for them to heal, and then it was off to go fight. And just whenever you would hear the people talk, it wasn't anything other than whatever the Lord says we will do, and as he talked about the commandments and things, whatever he says we will do. And so I really feel like the people were at a good point in this time to inhabit the land as they were coming through. And so the destruction of Jericho, real quickly, because we don't have to go through all the things there, but y'all know about them marching around, and he told them not to shout or anything like that, because normally whenever people are going to rush or they're going to fight, what do when they run across the field? They're yelling, Okay, just the opposite here. They're just going to be blowing their horns every once in a while. They're going to go march around, then they're going to go back. Don't you know that terrified them? Now, these people have already told you they're scared to death of them, and these people are just methodically doing this thing, and it's scaring them to death. Then on the last day, they, of course, blow the horns, walls come down, and they rush in, and what do they do with everybody? Every man, woman, and child. They killed every one of them except for Rahab and her family. So They did as promised, and they let her live, her and her family live. And then that's the start of their conquest as they're coming into Canaan, and they're going to come in, they're going to conquer a whole bunch of cities and nations, and then they'll split up. They've got 12 tribes that are coming through there, and they're going to split up and inhabit the nation. Anybody else have any comments today? All right, thank you very much.